Hello everybody! Today's video is a recap of the short stories I read in March. I read about 25 short stories in March, which is half of what I read in February, but it was a slow month, what can I say? I read 2 issues of Clarkesworld, issue 120, which I believe was September 2016, and 125, which was February 2017. I also read selected stories from these 4 back issues of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. I used to have a physical subscription to this magazine and I stopped reading it, it just wasn't quite my thing. But I cherry-picked ones from here that were authors that I wanted to read more by. These range from the November-December 2015 issue all the way up through the May-June 2016 one. Interestingly, most of my favorite stories came from this magazine, which I don't have a subscription to anymore. I also read the February 2017 ebook of Strange Horizons, and I'll get this one out of the way pretty quickly. Strange Horizons actually publishes on a weekly schedule, not a monthly one, but I back their Patreon, so I get the ebook bundle at the end of the month, and I prefer reading things kind of in month chunks anyway. This was an okay ebook. It was actually very light on fiction. There are only like 3 short stories in it and a couple of poems, and everything else are lots and lots of reviews of books, TV shows, movies, and then they are now reprinting or picking up on Jeff Ryman's 100 African Writers of SF project, which started out on Tor.com. And so the February ebook reprinted the first 3 sections of that, which is lots of great information. It's just not short stories. I read the entire thing and it was very interesting, and I'm looking forward to the March ebook, which I just got because I think it has more of those things from Jeff Ryman in it. Hopefully I'll like some of the stories though. The stories, the actual fiction in this ebook weren't bad. They were just really unmemorable. I actually enjoyed all of the nonfiction and the essays and stuff quite a bit. Really informative and really, really good reviews, almost academic in some cases. Just not much to say about the fiction. Backing up to Clarkesworld, issue 125, the February 2017 issue, I have almost nothing to say about. This was a pretty meh issue for me. I didn't feel like any of the stories were terrible, they just were not my particular thing, so I didn't care very much about them. I do have one favorite story from issue 120, however, and that is The Green Man Cometh by Larson. This story is about a woman who drives a taxi cab. She gives a ride to a man who pays suspiciously well, and then she finds out that he is under investigation for planning a bioweapon terrorist attack, and the people who are investigating him commandeer her and like literally her body to get access to him. They want her to give him another taxi ride. Like if he calls and says he wants transport, you gotta do it, and we're gonna like put somebody else's consciousness in your body. So she's helping to stop this attack. The very specific thing that made this story so enjoyable and different for me is that the main character has a disability. She has a physical deformity where she was born without her arms, so she has 2 prosthetic limbs, and a couple times in the story this comes up. She takes them off sometimes, she has to do things with her feet, including driving her car with her feet, and at all times she is fully functioning, fully capable, and nobody says you can't do this or you can't help us because you have prosthetic arms. That's never an excuse or a reason. It's not absent, like she explains at some point why she doesn't have arms, but that's pretty much the extent of it. I just enjoyed this so much, and part of it is that I have actually known and seen somebody who doesn't have fully functioning arms, and I have seen them do everything with their feet, including writing with a pencil and typing on a keyboard. And it's true. I think this is like actually quite educational. Like this is how people do it. This is how people function when they don't have arms and stuff. I want more stories like this because this is speculative, imaginative fiction that makes room for all types of people. The other 3 stories that were my favorites this month are from the magazine of fantasy and science fiction. The first one is also by Larson, and it's called The Nostalgia Calculator. This one I enjoyed so much because it was funny in a very millennial way. It's about a young millennial man who is working at his uncle's corporation. He is kind of babysitting their nostalgia calculator, which calculates nostalgia for certain items for marketing purposes. He notices a quirk in the data that alarms him. There's an impending nostalgia crisis and the company won't inform the world about it. They're kind of sitting on it and he wants to like go WikiLeaks on them. I'll stop there. I enjoyed this because it was written quite humorously and humorous SF that doesn't seem to be like making fun of its characters in the situation too much. I think it's kind of rare. I just feel like Larson hit the tone of this perfectly. And I also really just thought the story was pretty good. It's a little bit on the wacky side, but I would read far more about this character. Then there is Braid of Days and Wake of Nights by E. Lily Yu. I really enjoy Yu's fiction. I think all the stories I have ever read by her, I have really enjoyed. So this story is about a woman who lives in New York City and she is searching for a unicorn in Central Park to cure her best friend who is dying of ovarian cancer. And it's sad. It's about grief and like that impending grief when you know somebody's gonna die and that person is also really clear like they're going to die. They're going to die very young and there's this whole list of things that they will never do, they will never experience. And I felt like the ending was almost pitch perfect because you could either have something that is like a Hail Mary pass at the end that saves and everything is perfect and fine and it just doesn't feel right, or a crushing defeat at the end, which would just be super depressing. This found a middle road that I really liked. I found this story very emotionally satisfying, even though it was very sad. The final story I want to tell you about is the best story I have read so far this year. It's the only 5-star short story I have read in 2017, and that is Ash by Susan Palak. My mini pitch for this is that it is The Giving Tree for adults with a gut punch of a last line. And I can't summarize the entire story because it's experiencing that progression of events that makes that final sentence so hard. But basically, a woman is on vacation. While she is away from home, her house burns down. She loses all of her possessions. She rebuilds, and then the mountain ash tree on her property starts growing the items she lost in the fire, reviving them from the ashes. It was so good. It was beautiful, and the whole array of emotions in that story was great. At first I was like, oh, this is such a wonderful, sweet, uplifting story. And then we slid straight into all good things come to an end. Those are the highlights of the short fiction I read in March. I believe April will be pretty much the same, probably not a large number of stories, but I hope to read a couple of magazine issues. April is going to be a pretty busy month for me. So let me know if you've read any of these stories, what you thought of them, and if you have any recommendations for me, please tell me. I will try to read them. And until my next video, bye.